Today we bring a story of a man who gets cheated on by his wife with son's baseball coach. Let's start. My wife cheated with our son's baseball coach, so I told his wife about it at the end of season party. Let me preface this by saying that I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to post a story like this, but here we are. My life has turned into a goddamn soap opera, and I just have to share the insanity with you all. It all started a few months ago when my son Jack joined the local baseball team. He's 12 and has been super into baseball since he could barely walk. My wife Emily and I were ecstatic when he made the team. We thought it would be a great way for him to make new friends, learn teamwork, and stay active. Our son's coach, Mike, was a real All-American type, a retired minor league baseball player now coaching little leaguers in his spare time. He was married to a sweet woman named Karen, and they had 2 kids of their own. On the surface, they seemed like the perfect family, and I was glad Jack was part of their team. Fast forward a few weeks into the baseball season, and I'm starting to notice that Emily's been acting a bit off. She's usually really attentive and loving, but lately, she's been distant and distracted. I chalked it up to her being stressed with work and just needing some space. Little did I know that the real reason behind her behavior was far more sinister. One day, I'm hanging out with my buddy Rob, who's a delivery truck driver. He mentions in passing that he's seen Emily's car parked outside of Mike's house on a few occasions. I laugh it off at first, thinking maybe she's just picking up some baseball gear or something. Then Rob says something that makes my blood run cold. He tells me that he's seen her car there almost every Tuesday for the past couple of months. Now, I'm no fool. I know that if your wife is spending hours at another man's house and not mentioning it to you, that's a red flag the size of Texas. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I decided to ask Rob to snap a pic next time he went by there. Over the next few weeks, I started casually asking Emily about her day, specifically what she was up to on Tuesdays. Every time, she'd come up with some lame excuse like running errands, going to the gym, or meeting up with friends. Never once did she mention Mike's house. At this point, I'm pretty sure my wife is cheating on me. Rob sent me 2 pics, one from each of those following Tuesdays. At this point, I'm devastated, but I keep my cool. I knew I had to do something big to make Emily and Mike pay for what they did. And that's when it hits me, the end of season team party was coming up in a few days. It was being held at the local public pool, and all the kids and their parents would be there. What better way to expose their dirty little secret than in front of all of the parents? I mean, cheating is absolutely not a socially accepted thing, so this would instantly vilify them as the pieces of expletive they were. So, over the next couple of days, I gather all the evidence I need. I was able to get into her phone and take screenshots of their text messages, which Emily had foolishly left on her phone. Of course, I also had the photos of them together at Mike's house, thanks to my buddy Rob who agreed to help me out. The day of the party finally arrives, and I can barely contain my excitement and my rage. As much as I'm hurting, I have to admit there's a sick thrill in knowing that I'm about to drop a bombshell on everyone. We arrive at the pool, and the atmosphere is festive. The kids are splashing around in the water, parents are chatting and laughing, and Mike and Emily are playing their parts as if nothing's wrong. Little do they know their lives are about to be turned upside down. Once everyone's settled in, I casually gather all the parents and the coach over to the empty picnic area, saying I have a surprise announcement to make. I stand before the group, trying to keep my voice steady as I address them. Ladies and gentlemen, I have some shocking news to share with you today. It's come to my attention that my wife, Emily, and our kids coach, Mike, have been having an affair. The entire group falls silent, guests stunned, and you could hear a pin drop as I pull out the incriminating text messages and photos from my pocket. I start reading them aloud for everyone to hear, my heart pounding with a mix of anger, sadness, and twisted satisfaction. Emily's face goes ghost white, and tears well up in her eyes as she realizes there's no way out of this. Mike, on the other hand, looks like he's been punched in the gut. He walks over to me, trying to speak, telling me to shut my mouth right now. I guess, since he played baseball, he thought he was a tough guy. I'm not the toughest guy in the world, so keep everything in context when I say that I am a judo brown belt, box with my guys on the regular, and have a 3-0 amateur mixed martial arts record. Nobody knows this, though, because I am not a vain son of a expletive, like the almighty baseball player is. So, I look him right in the eyes and tell him that if he would like to keep his teeth, then he had better back off and shut the hell up. There must have been something in my tone that day because it was way more than just believable. He really knew that I was ready to throw down, and he backed off immediately. As if things couldn't get any worse for the cheating duo, Karen, Mike's wife, suddenly explodes with rage. She's crying and screaming at him, demanding to know how he could do this to their family. It's chaos, and I'm standing there in the eye of the storm, watching it all around me. Once the initial shock wears off, the other parents start chiming in with their outrage, disgusted, and most of all, expressing their desire to have nothing to do with Emily and Mike. They demand that Mike step down as the team's coach, declaring there's no way they will sign their kids back up for his team next year. It's clear that both he and Emily have been effectively alienated from the entire community. Another mom, who was close to Mike's wife, directs all sorts of nasty comments towards my wife. I'm so amped up that I didn't quite catch all the words, but I could hear the tone, nasty, pointed, and filled with hate. When all this was going down, Mike ran towards me and tried to hit me. I guess my wife only told him about her leaking glory hole, not her glorified kickboxing husband who has a record of 78 victories and 5 losses in the amateur circuit. I was more than happy to dance. I blocked his first right and hit him right between his eyes, and he fell backwards. I did not hit him hard as I did not want him broken. He picked up a baseball bat and tried again. Now this is where he fucked up. Trying to hit someone with a deadly weapon is a crime. Well, he tried to at least. I landed a kick on his right temple and he was out cold. That is what I call a home run. One of the mothers in attendance called the cops. It did not take time. I was a bit afraid but was ready for the law. To my surprise, the lady explained to the cops that it was Mike who tried to attack with a baseball bat and I was merely defending my life. In my mind I thought, I don't need a weapon, lady. I am a weapon. Mike was taken away. With the party officially over, I tell my wife to get to the car. I take her home and then instruct her to pack her things and leave for a few days. She doesn't argue with me. We tell our son that she needs to go see grandma for a few days, and that's it. The fallout from my revenge is swift and brutal. Emily and I are now in the process of getting a divorce, and Mike's marriage to Karen is all but finished. He officially lost his coaching job for the next year, and his reputation is in tatters. As for me, I've been trying to pick up the pieces of my life and focus on being there for my son. One thing that was amazing was that multiple women have called me to train their kids for kickboxing. I guess I will take that as a new job. It's been a hell of a roller coaster, and I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. But I have to admit, there's a small, petty part of me that can't help but feel a little victorious. Now for the second story. So, I'm putting this on the internet and changing names because I don't know how to ask this otherwise. I'm afraid of telling my family or friends because I don't want them getting the wrong idea, but I just don't know how to reconcile some facts about my wife's pregnancy. Background: I'm 33, male, met and married my wife, 31, right out of college 10 years ago. We got married really early into our relationship and had a few rough patches, but our marriage kept strong through it all. Recently, we've been in talks of having a baby, and I thought it was a good time to start thinking of making our family a bit more than just dogs and cats. Friendship. My wife has this friend, a guy friend that she's known since I think middle school or something. I've met him. He's pretty nice, but he's like faux nice. I always got the feeling that he thinks he's better than everyone around him, or that he's really arrogant. I can't really describe it, but he comes off as really pretentious and fake. He's got 2 problems. He's a deadbeat, doesn't work, lives in a tiny dirty apartment, and is constantly needing help from people, which my wife obliges sometimes. For how he acts all self-important, you'd think he'd be able to do something on his own. Problem 2 is that he's obviously in love with my wife, and she just doesn't see it or acknowledge it. I'm sure she knows, but just chooses to ignore it. I've tried to talk about how wrong it is to keep in contact with someone who mooches off of you and is obviously vying for your attention, but she just wouldn't have it and didn't want to abandon one of her longest-time friends. That part one kind of understood since I have friendships that are like that too, but come on. At least in my friendships, they aren't trying to get with me. It's been a constant annoyance that we've gotten into fights about. I just left it alone after the last time we talked about it since I didn't want to get into a big fight about this guy that I don't want to pay any attention to. Last year, I got the news I was going overseas. My work was keeping me from home a lot because I'm an equipment operator at an oil rig. The timeline was that I would be overseas for about 6 months, come back for 2, then go back for 4. I talked to my wife about it and told her about how I wanted a baby and promised her we would try in the 2 months I was home. So away I went. 6 months flew by, and I came home. We started trying for a baby as soon as I returned. In the first month, my wife came back with a positive pregnancy test. I was ecstatic and told everyone I knew immediately. We started getting everything ready, including baby-proofing our home, getting a crib, and making a room especially for our child. I even worked something out with my job to return home every month I was away to ensure everything was going okay. I can't even tell you how I felt when I had to go back. Those 4 months were the longest I've ever had. After an agonizing couple of months, I returned home. My wife had swelled up, and at that time, we were both excited. We set up an appointment with her OB/GYN to get a checkup and see how everything was progressing. My wife looked great, and while she stepped out, I chatted with her doctor. We talked about how long we were trying and the expected due date, and that's when things took an unexpected turn. The doctor mentioned that my wife was 7.5 months pregnant. I was under the impression that pregnancy usually lasted for 9 months, and my wife was only 6 months pregnant when I left. Confused, I asked if that was normal, thinking early births were rare. The doctor clarified that 1.5 months was the normal duration for a pregnancy. This revelation struck me, and I started doing calendar checks, going through almost every day of the past 6 months to check the timeline. It became clear it was impossible for me to have fathered the child during the time I was home. My wife had gotten pregnant while I was away, and she only has one male friend to my knowledge, this guy who's in love with her. It has to be him. Otherwise, I have no idea who it could be. I'm confident that's the case now, but I don't know what to do. I guess I want to ask how I might be able to find evidence of her cheating at this stage. I don't know how to bring any of this up to her or to anyone I know. So, I took the advice of a coworker who had gone through something similar, and I started taking notice of some things I hadn't before. For one thing, and I didn't notice this until I started becoming suspicious, my wife had not talked about her friend to me in quite a while. She likes talking about and gossiping about all of her friends, so for her to just stop one subject in particular was pretty strange. She also had some new things around the house that she told me her friend had given her. I think they slept together at some point, and she's trying to draw attention away from him, so I don't get suspicious. The due date is still the most evidence I have, but I did try and look at their conversations. There are weird spots in their texts, like some of the messages have been deleted, or they continued a conversation after a phone call or something. I'm going to confront my wife as soon as I have something more solid. Last update. It's been many months since I made my first post, and frankly, I had forgotten about this account, but I figured you'd like to know what happened. So, I confronted my wife about the situation, presented proof that the baby wasn't mine, and told her who I believed it really was. As soon as I said his name, she started crying, and I knew I was right. She told me it was all true, and that it didn't mean anything to her, that she had a moment of weakness while I was gone and let him hit me. She got pregnant during that time and decided to just say the baby was ours when I came back. When she said this, I got up and started pacing around the room. I couldn't believe that she would pretend that this baby was mine when it wasn't. I told her that I was leaving her and that she needed to find some new place to stay in the meantime. I suggested that she get her new lover to come get her so she and the baby can stay with their father. She just kept crying until I eventually called her parents and told them to come get her. I briefly explained what happened and just told them all to get out, and I would deliver her stuff to her later on right after I found a divorce lawyer and got some paperwork made. A couple of weeks later, as part of the divorce, we got a court-ordered prenatal test that confirmed everything I thought. The baby wasn't mine, although it also wasn't the male friend's either. So I don't know who the father is, and frankly, I don't care. We've completely separated. I'm not happy about how any of this went down, but this is just the way it needs to be. This is what she gets for cheating on me and almost making me raise a child that wasn't even mine.
Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.